it's Rose. Today I'm going to talk about the books that I have on my personal shelf in my bedroom. So I have two rooms in my house, and one of them is my bedroom and the other one is more of a writing room / library. In my bedroom I have two bookshelves. One of them is the one that you can see behind me, the other one is next to me, and I want to talk about what books I keep in my bedroom with me and why. I don't over much have a plan for this video, so much as I just kind of want to yap for a minute, as they say, so bear with me and let's get started. So I'm going to go in order of how the books are arranged on my shelf, and I'm going to start with the shelf that's next to me because it has more books on it. The first book is The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. This is largely because this is honestly one of my favorite movies. I just watched it for the first time this summer. I absolutely love it, but also just because this book is very good, it's very profound, it's on its way to becoming a classic, and I definitely wanted it in my room with my collection, basically. The next book I have is kind of a 180 from that, but I think oddly has a similar demographic from what I've seen, and it is the Barbie movie script by Greta Gerwig. This was a gift, which I believe I was originally going to annotate, and I have not actually done that yet. I will probably at some point. It's very pretty. It has little pictures in the first part of it, I think, like this one. I will never forget seeing that movie in theaters. I will never forget the summer of 2023 in general, so it's a great keepsake and it matches the general vibe of my room and my collection. Next I have what is it called? Illustrated Stories of Princes and Princesses. I can't believe I forgot the title of that because you can't really see in the video probably, but this book is kind of falling apart because I got this when I was very young, back when I was still mainly reading storybooks, and I have read it cover to cover so many times. It has beautiful illustrations in it. This is Cinderella, I believe. This really made me the type of reader and writer and person that I am, this book. So of course it's in here. It also matches the vibe of the room. The Binding by Bridget Collins. One of those books that I picked up for literally no reason. I didn't read the synopsis. I did not even find it in a bookstore. It was a random antique store in a small town about 3.5 hours away from where I actually live, and I decided to buy it solely based on the vibe that I thought I would love this book. I did not proceed to read the book for another several months after that. When I did, I read it very quickly once I got into the flow. I will never stop thinking about it. This is one of the best books I've ever read. I don't even like to recommend it to people just because I feel like it becoming popular in any way would like strip away the magic for me, and maybe that's selfish, so I'm making up for that by having it in this video. The plot is too hard to explain quickly, so maybe I'll make a separate video on The Binding. So next is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. This copy is kind of worn and torn. It was annotated 4 times, twice by me, twice by the person that gifted it to me. Very beautiful story. Of course this is in my room. It would be a literal crime if this was not in my room with me all the time. And I love it, love it, love it. V.E. Schwab is an excellent writer, and I've loved everything of hers that I've read. If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. The first thriller, and one of the only thrillers that I've ever read. It also is dark academia. This is also annotated only once, just by me. There's a glimpse. It took me the better part of a year to read this book. I believe I started it in early April and I did not finish it until towards the end of autumn. It was very worth it. I think I would have finished it faster if I hadn't been preoccupied with other things, and if I hadn't been annotating it. It's so good. Again, this copy is pretty torn up, but legitimately probably the best book I've ever read. Not my favorite book, mind you, but probably the best one. Next, we have 2 books by the same author. We have Lovely War and The Passion of Dulce by Julie Berry. Julie Berry's very good. I would 100% compare Julie Berry to V.E. Schwab. Julie Berry is kind of the V.E. Schwab, I think, of historical fiction. I need to read more of Berry and more of Schwab. I've definitely read more of Schwab than I have of Berry, but they are so good. This one is devastating in a romantic kind of way, and this one is devastating in more of a just devastating in the truest sense of the word kind of way. When I think of the phrase "my Roman Empire," I usually think of this book because it feels like watching an empire crashing and burning. That has nothing to do with the plot. That's just how it feels. These are spectacular, and also the vibe of the room. This was my first favorite book ever. I read this, I think, 14 times in 2 years when I was younger. A Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett. One day I'm gonna read this and probably annotate it. I haven't reread it in a long time. It's purple, it's a childhood favorite. I don't think that I could have not put this book in my room. So definitely recommend this one for young girls. Another childhood favorite classic that I recommend to young girls, Little Women. I have an entire collection of copies of Little Women. They are all on that shelf. I don't know how many there are, and I'm not going to count right now, but the stack is about this big. I also have the sequels to Little Women. They are in the other room, but I'm not going to show every copy I have of Little Women. I might make a separate video about that, but this is my favorite copy that I have of Little Women in my room, and I absolutely adore this. It's the movie copy, so it has stills from the movie in it. Also, the one that is modeled after the actual first edition copies of the real Little Women book that Louisa May Alcott published. Absolute must-have. It also ties into the Greta Gerwig-ness of my general aesthetic. In the theme of Louisa May Alcott, I have the first book that she ever published. I think it's the first one she published, Flower Fables. I bought this in Concord, where she lived for basically her entire life. This is so cute. I haven't finished it yet. I had to take a break from reading it, but absolutely beautiful. The bookstore I bought this at is actually still owned by the Alcott family, which is super awesome. This is another book I bought in Concord. I've bought a lot of books in Concord actually, but this is Walden by Henry David Thoreau. I've listened to the audiobook of this, and this is my trophy copy, as they say. Very pretty. I have a matching copy of Little Women that is from the same edition as this. So this is very nice. It has the gold pages, and I love it. Next, The Ghosts of Rose Hill by R.M. Romero. I just read this year. Very beautiful, as you can see. It's written entirely in poetry, but it is a narrative, it is a novel. It's sort of like a modern epic, is what I would call it, I guess. It's very melancholy, the mythology's great, the setting is immaculate, legitimately went onto my list of favorite books ever as soon as I opened it, basically. The God of Endings, which is amazing. Absolutely floored by this. It's a vampire novel, but not in the sense that people are used to. I think I read this last year. I wish I could read it for the first time again. I hope one day I get to reread it. It is also a very beautiful book. I recommend this so much. I think this is the only other thriller that I've read, ironically. The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. You've heard probably everyone and their mother talking about it, and for good reason. I don't remember this book so much as I remember how I felt reading this book. This is another one that, although color-wise it doesn't match the vibe of my room, the vibe of the book and the vibe of my room go together. So of course it's in here. I love this book. Please read this book. I need more people to be talking about it even than there already are. Alright, and that is everything on the top shelf of the shelf next to me. I am going to continue this video with the shelf below it. Okay, so now I'm going to do the bottom shelf of the shelf next to me, which has a lot less books on it. So let's get started with that. So I have the Padme series, that's what I call it. I don't actually know if that's what it's called, by E.K. Johnston, which I love these books so much. Are they the best written thing ever? Probably not. Are they a lot better written than stuff that is more popular than them? Yes, I said what I said. Deal with it. Star Wars books are a league above other books for me, just in general. I love Star Wars. I love Star Wars books. I love Padme. She's my favorite Star Wars character. This is the first book I ever tabbed. It's very cute. I think that these are spectacular, and I think that everybody that is a fan of Star Wars needs to read them. I think that they should be way more popular than they are. They're super enlightening about Padme as a character, and I think that they go really, really well with the book Leia, Princess of Alderaan, which I just recently read and made a video on. So I think that reading these before or even after that book is a great idea. I forgot to say while I was still holding them, but the reason why those are in my room on this bookshelf is because they match the vibe of the room, and I adore Padme, and she's one of my main inspirations. These are not technically books per se, but I have 3 notebooks sitting here right now. Originally there were more, but these 2 are notebooks full of my story ideas, poems, stuff like that are already full. There's actually 3 of these, but one of them is in use somewhere else. And then this one is still in progress, but it is specifically for a novel that I'm working on and off right now. I think that these are a very cute addition to the shelf, and they're on there because a lot of times I have to refer back to stuff that I wrote down in my old notebooks while writing things that I'm currently working on. So I'm not going to show them all right now because I don't want to pick up the whole stack of books and sort of mess up the equilibrium of the shelf, so to speak. But I have the Hunger Games series by Suzanne Collins. This is a book that was secondhand when I bought it, and now I've read it 3 or 4 times, so it's very worse for wear. I think there are pages falling out. I've underlined a lot of things. This series is so good. I think this is the first book that I recommend to people when they ask me for a book recommendation, unless, of course, they've already read it. I love this. I love this more every single time I read it. I love the movies. These are on here because the book that I am currently having published was so largely inspired by themes in the Hunger Games, and a lot of my writing has been inspired in one way or another by the Hunger Games because of how young I was when I read it. I cannot say enough how good this series is and how much influence it has. These are also technically not books, and they are technically on the shelf above the one I'm currently talking about, but I forgot to talk about them when I was in that area. I have, I think, 5 Barbie movies. I'm not going to pull all of them off because they fit very tightly. I don't want to try to cram them all back on. This is one of them. I'm such a Barbie girly, as may have been exemplified earlier by me having the Barbie script and the amount of pink around me. I am a Barbie girly more in the sense of the 2010s fairy princess Swan Lake Barbie vibes more than the 2020s fashion girly influencer Barbie vibes. Those are good Barbie vibes as well, and I like them too, but just to clarify. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the shelf that was originally behind me, and now behind me you can see the shelf that I was just talking about. Hopefully you like it. I think it's very cute. Actually, the other notebooks I was talking about are above my head here, which is kind of funny. So let's get started with this shelf. Starting off strong and heavy and big, the complete works of William Shakespeare. I haven't read the complete works of William Shakespeare. I read, I think, 2 or 3 of the plays that are in this one, which is all of them. So I think I've read Romeo and Juliet like 4 times. I've actually been in Romeo and Juliet as well. It looks like this on the inside. And surprisingly, when I read them from this book, I read them a lot faster than when I read them in a separate volume, which is not usually how it works for me. I usually prefer things in a separate volume, but I think it might be just that they feel so much shorter due to the font size being a lot smaller. I have this in here because I am a Shakespeare nerd, and every day I strive to be more of a Shakespeare nerd, and I don't care what anyone thinks about it. Ralph Waldo Emerson Selected Writings. Basically, I have something from every writer that lived in Concord around the same time. I think the only one I do not have is Margaret Sidney, only because I did not know about her prior to going to Concord, so I didn't really do any research on her, so I don't know as much about her. At some point, maybe I will buy The Five Little Peppers and How They Grew. Probably will, but right now I am on a book buying ban, so not gonna do that right now. I technically haven't read this. I have read the closest thing to the audiobook equivalent that I could find, and I don't remember if I bought this in Concord or if I bought it. I think I bought it in Concord. Yes, I did. This is a cute little book, and it's kind of pretty. So, selected poems. Is it selected? Selected poems of Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. I saw the movie that was made about him a couple of years ago. It was not super popular. It was I think it was made by more of an indie studio. It was very good. I saw it with my grandparents' church. This is a cute little book that I think belonged to someone in my family. I don't actually know who. It was found in some old stuff in a house that we were cleaning out. I have read, I think, all of the poems in this book, and I have quite a few of them dog-eared. Langston Hughes's poetry. If you can't tell by now, this entire shelf is poetry. It's all of the poetry that I have, because I wanted to have all of my poetry in my bedroom. But there are reasons why I bought all of the poetry and why I kept it, so that's kind of what I'm saying when I tell you the reasoning for why it's in here. This is in here, this is still in my collection, because it was the first poetry book that I ever bought, and it was the first one that I ever read of my own volition. I do have, in the other room, I have Shel Silverstein's poetry, I believe, but that is more of a childhood venture. It's not in here just because comedic poetry is not really my vibe anymore. I do still enjoy it, but it's not the vibe that I wanted for the bedroom collection. Henry Wadsworth poetry. This is, I think, the most recent addition to the poetry collection, and I haven't read it yet. Oops. This is very thick, very small font. I got this because I'm obsessed with Lucy Gray Baird from The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and the poem that she's named and modeled after is in this book because it was written by William Wordsworth. I do think this is not actually all of his poetry, despite being so thick. That is how most poets are, I have found. I think the only one that I have the entirety of their catalog of poetry is Emily Dickinson, and that book is really big. So I understand why most of them are just selected. Also have Lord Byron, and I picked this up at a yard sale, I think a couple of months ago. Haven't read this one yet either. Really looking forward to it because I actually don't know anything about his poetry. I know a little bit about his life. Usually I know more about a poet's work and less about their life when I am reading a book of their poetry, so this will be interesting. Very heavy, very thick, and it's from the same line of editions as the one that I just showed you. Also not pictured here because it is with my bag because I'm about to go somewhere, is the selected poetry of Dylan Thomas, which is another book of poetry that I bought very early on in my interest in poetry. I am currently reading it, so it is not on the shelf. This book is odd because I'm not totally sure that it's actually by the person that it says it's by. Let me explain. So this book does not show up on Goodreads. It does not really show up on Google. If you type in lines of the poems in it to Google or any other kind of search engine, you get nothing. It's like none of it exists. The cover shows a woman, probably because most of these poems are love poems, and there are pictures in it somewhere of women. I think this is actually the Virgin Mary. And it says that it's by James Whitcomb Riley in the inside cover. However, none of these poems show up as being attributed to James Whitcomb Riley because none of them show up at all. So this poetry book is very mysterious to me. I don't understand what it is or where it came from, unfortunately. If anybody has any ideas, let me know. Okay, so I was talking about this one just a minute ago. We have The Complete Poems of Emily Dickinson, which I just read this year, and it took me 4 or 5 months. Totally worth it. I tabbed it extensively. As you can see, there are a couple poems in here that are dog-eared or underlined. I did not annotate it because I knew that that would make it take me like 10 years. I annotate very slowly. This was bought secondhand. I think it was at a lot of different places before me. It has 2 different tags on it along with the original pricing on the back, and I bought it at a yard sale myself. So I don't plan on parting with it, so hopefully this will be its forever home. I have this here because of course I do, because Emily Dickinson is so fitting for the aesthetic that I have cultivated, and I honestly love Emily Dickinson's poetry. Of the poets that I have read so far, she is my favorite poet. I did actually do some poetry in her style after I finished reading it, so that was kind of fun. And I have Phillis Wheatley's poetry. I've read part of this forever and ever ago. When I took a trip when I was much younger to Savannah, Georgia, I bought this in a little bookstore there. I wish I could go back to that place. It was beautiful. The food was great. The people were nice. This book is kind of water damaged. It was water damaged when I got it, because it was bought at a secondhand bookstore. I don't remember enjoying her poetry, but that's not a reflection of the poetry. It's because at that time I didn't really actually like poetry, and I only bought this because I wanted to look smart. So one day I am going to read this with the knowledge and appreciation that I now have for poetry and tell you, hopefully, what I think. We also have some books on here that I am not going to pick up and show you because one of them is very heavy. That poetry book is a collection of pretty much all of the poetry that was ever written in the 20th century. It's called Poems That Never Die, and it's huge and it's super heavy and it's very old, and I'm not even sure that I can handle it well enough to read all the way through it. So I'm not going to pick it up for the video because I just don't have the energy. The other ones I'm not going to pick up, you probably saw them earlier, a stack of antique books, which are already pretty damaged due to the fact that they were not ever really properly taken care of before or after I got them. But among those, I have the complete poems of Longfellow, which is the least damaged of the books, Dante's Inferno, an old reader's book for elementary schoolers, and the Epic of the Lady of the Lake in the original Old English. None of those books are readable, except maybe the Longfellow one, and I try to avoid handling them as much as I can because they are already quite damaged. And then I have 2 journals over here, which again are not so much hard to handle. They're not, as much as the position that they're placed in is a little bit precarious, and I don't really have time to take them out and put them back right now. But they are from Disney, and they're very big and shiny, and I do actually write in them. So one day, probably, I will show them in a video. Those are my bookshelves in my actual room. I usually also have another book or 2 in here on my chair, the ones that I actually read. So thank you so much for watching, and come back soon. Goodbye.